Nefertiti disappears in the middle of a reign that tried to turn daylight into law, and the strangest part is how clean the disappearance looks. A queen who once filled walls, titles, and rituals simply stops being named, as if the palace chose silence over mourning. Her face remains, calm and precise, the famous crown rising like a blade of blue fire above her brow, but the living woman slips away from the record. When a queen is loved, hated, or even merely tolerated, Egypt usually leaves a trail. Here, the trail thins and breaks. In Akhenaten's new city, the sun is not just worshipped, it is staged. Temples have no roofs, courtyards are open, and every public space feels designed to keep nothing hidden. In such a place, absence should be impossible, yet Nefertiti becomes absence itself. For years she stands beside the king as if she is part of the throne's spine. She offers incense, receives tribute, and appears in formal scenes with a steadiness that makes her feel necessary, not decorative. Her name is carved with care, repeated until it feels permanent. The art shows a household that is both intimate and unsettling, the sun disk reaching down with hands, touching faces, blessing mouths, insisting on closeness. Nefertiti is there beneath that strange, grasping light, her posture straight, her expression controlled, as if she understands how dangerous attention can be. Sometimes she wears crowns that speak of old power. Sometimes she wears a new crown that belongs only to this new world they are building. She rides, she stands tall, she faces outward, and she does not shrink. In some scenes she is shown doing what kings do, and that is never accidental. There are images where she raises a weapon over a bound enemy, the pose sharp and ceremonial, the message unmistakable. It tells every watcher that this queen is not merely present, she is permitted to embody the state. It also tells someone inside the court to be careful. Her full name is a line of devotion and authority, and it is spoken as if it seals a pact. Nefertiti, beautiful are the beauties of Aten, the beautiful one has come. In a palace where names are power, this is a name meant to last. Akhetaten rises fast, built from fresh stone and fresh certainty, a city planted in desert like a challenge. The palaces gleam, the roads are wide, and the new temples feel like stages without curtains. Everything is built to be witnessed, especially the royal family. But the brightness has a cost. The old gods are pushed aside, old priests are dismissed, old prayers are treated like crimes, and the rest of Egypt watches from afar with a tight jaw. In such tension, every illness, every rivalry, every whisper becomes a possible weapon. Then the official images change, not with a dramatic wound, but with a quiet gap. Nefertiti's name begins to appear less often, her figure less central, her place beside the king no longer guaranteed. This is not how a public marriage fades, unless something breaks behind the doors. If she died, the silence is strange. Egypt knew how to honor queens, and it knew how to turn grief into stone that lasted. There should be a clear funeral, a procession, an offering list, a tomb prepared with careful pride. Instead, the record gives no satisfying farewell. If she fell from favor, the restraint is even stranger. Egypt also knew how to punish memory, how to chip faces away, how to scrape a name until it looks like a wound. Here, there is no consistent rage, no neat erasure, only an absence that feels managed. It is the kind of absence that suggests the palace wanted the world to keep moving without tripping over the question. It suggests scribes were told what to carve and what to avoid, not because they forgot, but because remembering would cause trouble. Silence becomes a policy. While her name fades, other names press forward, and one of them feels like a shadow wearing a crown. Nefertiti appears in royal forms, sometimes with titles that hint at a woman, sometimes with the authority of a king. The inscriptions give a shape, but not a face. The court, which once celebrated clarity, begins to speak with layered words. A ruler is named, then named again. Titles shift, epithets appear and disappear, and the stone reads like someone trying to say something without fully saying it. The result is uncertainty carved into permanence. A figure called Smenkhare also flickers into view, a king with a brief, dim outline, present in a few places, then gone. Some records make him feel real, others make him feel like a convenient answer, a name used to cover an awkward gap the court could not explain. If Smenkhare lived, why does he vanish so quickly and leave so little behind? If he did not truly exist, why did the court bother with him at all? In a royal house that controlled images like a weapon, a blurry king suggests confusion or concealment. In that atmosphere, Nefertiti's disappearance feels less like a private tragedy and more like a political event. She is too central to simply drift away. She is too well placed to simply be overlooked. If she moved, someone allowed it, demanded it, or forced it. The royal daughters grow, their names echoing devotion, their positions shifting like pieces on a board. One is elevated, another is married, another is mourned, and through their movements the court tries to look stable. But stability depends on the queen, and the queen is missing. Outside the city, Egypt's patience is not infinite. The old temples have memories, the old families have influence, and the old gods have followers who keep their faith behind closed mouths. Every day the sun disk rules, resentment deepens, and the throne becomes a tighter seat. If Nefertiti died in such a moment, it would weaken the new religion's public heart. If she lived but stepped aside, it would suggest a fracture inside the royal unity they displayed so obsessively. Either way, the palace would want control over the story more than comfort. Yet the art and inscriptions do not give a clean villain or a clean coffin. They give fragments, and fragments can be arranged into many shapes. A name appears with unusual honor, then vanishes. A title sounds feminine, then shifts. It feels like a hand turning a mask in the dark. There are hints that a powerful female presence remains late in the reign, close to the throne, close to rituals, close to the naming of time itself. But the hints never stand up and announce themselves. They slide through the inscriptions like a figure passing behind a curtain. If Nefertiti became that presence, it would mean she did not disappear, she transformed. She could have taken a royal name to rule alongside Akhenaten or after him, presenting authority in a form the court could accept, while keeping her personal name out of danger. But transformation creates new questions. Why hide the most famous queen in Egypt behind a new name, unless the name Nefertiti had become a problem? Why would a woman who once stood openly in kingly poses suddenly need protection, unless the ground beneath her had shifted violently? Akhenaten dies, and the city he built begins to lose its claim on the future. Power moves, alliances harden, and the court looks for a way to survive. In that scramble, the past week matters more than the past decade, and the most dangerous people are those closest to the crown. Then the boy king appears, fragile and young, and even his name changes as the nation retreats from the sun's harsh experiment. Tutankhaten becomes Tutankhamen, and in that one shift the court announces a reversal without admitting guilt. The old gods return like a tide. If Nefertiti lived into this reversal, she would be trapped between identities. She had been the face of the new faith, the visible partner of the heretic king, the queen who stood in the open temples. If the old order returned, it would need someone to blame or someone to bury. If she ruled briefly as a masked king, the return to tradition would make that period embarrassing, even dangerous to acknowledge. If she resisted the reversal, she would become the enemy of those who wanted stability. If she supported it, she would betray the revolution she once embodied. The later rulers begin to treat Akhenaten's reign like a stain that must be scrubbed from walls. His city is dismantled, blocks are reused, names are avoided, and the official lists try to skip him. In such an operation, a queen linked to him could be erased by omission rather than violence. Omission is cleaner than destruction, and it leaves fewer questions on the surface. A name is simply not spoken, a tomb is relocated, a set of funerary goods is absorbed into another burial, and the court moves forward. The silence becomes the proof, because the silence is so complete. But completeness is difficult, and history keeps coughing up pieces. A fragment of inscription here, a carved title there, a damaged cartouche that still suggests a familiar sound. Each piece feels like it belongs to a different story, and the stories refuse to agree on a single ending. Some clues suggest a ruler called Nefertiti who seems to care about Akhenaten's memory, honoring him in words that sound intimate. Other clues suggest a more ruthless transition, a ruler trying to hold a collapsing regime together with stiff titles and thin authority. If Nefertiti was Nefertiti, then her disappearance was not a falling away but a strategy, a decision to survive by changing the name on the throne. Yet if that is true, why did her reign, if it existed, end so quickly, leaving so little that could not be doubted? If Nefertiti was someone else, then Nefertiti still remains unaccounted for, a queen who exits the stage without a final gesture. Either option is unsettling, because it means the royal house either hid her in plain sight or lost her in the most controlled environment on earth. Even her burial, the most basic demand of Egyptian power, becomes a mystery. There are tombs in the cliffs near Akhetaten that feel unfinished, as if prepared in haste or abandoned mid-plan. There are whispers of bodies moved, of coffins reused, of names swapped to fit new truths. The desert around Akhetaten holds secrets well, but not perfectly. A city that once shouted devotion is now a field of broken foundations, and the wind moves through empty rooms where the queen's laughter might have sounded. In that emptiness, the missing burial feels like a missing heartbeat. Her famous portrait, preserved by chance, makes the absence more cruel. It shows a living person, not an abstract symbol, a woman who could have spoken, argued, commanded, and feared. To look at that face and accept that the record simply stops is to feel the hand of choice. Nefertiti is not the only one blurred by this time, but she is the sharpest blur because she was once so clear. Other names fade due to damage, theft, accident, and time. Her name fades while the system still functioned, while scribes still worked, while the courts still managed images. That is why the disappearance feels like a human act, not a natural decay. Someone decided what the future would be allowed to know, and the decision was carried out with enough discipline that even later generations struggled to recover the truth. The mystery is engineered, not accidental. Yet engineering leaves stress marks, and the stress marks are there in the contradictions. A queen who may have been a ruler who may have been a woman, a king who appears briefly and then dissolves, a reversal of religion that demands scapegoats, and a campaign to rewrite memory. In such a storm, Nefertiti could have been protected by those who loved her, hidden by those who feared her, or sacrificed by those who needed a clean path forward. She could have died quietly, or lived loudly behind a new name, or been pushed into exile within her own palace. What makes the story unbearable is that every possibility fits some pieces and fails others. If she died, where is the unmistakable funeral language Egypt loved? If she ruled, why does the record speak as if embarrassed? If she was removed, why is the punishment so subtle and the gap so smooth? Akhenaten's experiment tried to make the sun the only witness, but the sun does not testify. It rises, it floods the ruins with light, and it leaves no footnotes. It watched the queen stand beside the king, and it watched her vanish from the official voice of the nation. So Nefertiti remains suspended between a living face and a missing end, between the loud certainty of her early years and the careful quiet that follows. Was her disappearance a death hidden for stability, a reign hidden for safety, or a removal hidden for fear? And who benefited most from not saying her name?